and welcome to the show. Today we will be reviewing the Breitling Colt 41mm version. This watch has been very generously lent in by my good friends at Saltzman's. They are of course an authorized dealer of Breitling now, so congrats to them. It is a brand I absolutely adore, as you know. You could probably tell by my Breitling trinkets that are dotted about. And actually, talking of Breitling, I've got to say a massive thank you to my good friend Rainer, who sent this from Germany. It's a beautiful little sliding scale demonstration of the Navitimer. The Navitimer is of course Breitling's most iconic watch, released, I think it was 52, was it? Yeah, it predates the Sub, which was released in 54, and then this Omega Speedmaster was 57, if I remember correctly. Guys, do correct me if I'm wrong. People tend to forget that it predates all of these iconic watches. And well, it's a big favorite of mine. If you're not familiar with Breitling, they were founded in 1884, I believe. An incredible brand. They are still independent to this day, although there are rumors of negotiations going on as we speak. But anyway, today we are going to be reviewing or taking a look at one of the most popular watches. Now, before we get into this review, I've got to do wristwatch check. I almost forgot. I'm wearing my little Zin 104. I'm on my second honeymoon period. This is a rebuy. I didn't intend to actually buy this watch back. I just got an offer I couldn't refuse. So here it is. And I'm wearing it on a really beautiful dark chocolate brown, very rich leather one-piece strap from Wrist Candy Watch Club. I just think it complements the aviation style of the watch perfectly. Also, it's very comfortable. So, wristwatch check done. Let's change perspectives and have a closer look at the Breitling Colt 41. Today we are reviewing the Breitling Colt. This is the 41mm version. This is a Swiss-made luxury timepiece, an automatic in stainless steel. The reference is A1738811C934, and this of course comes from the Colt line, which as the name suggests is a heavily military inspired timepiece. And when we think of the word Colt, it immediately conjures up images of iconic firearms like an M16 or perhaps the M1911, maybe even the single action army revolvers during the Civil War, the American Civil War, that is. It's a name synonymous with iconic firearms, and although Breitling don't say it, it's no accident, certainly. The Colt line of watches was first introduced in the 1980s and has always been considered the kind of entry level of Breitling's range. This particular version is a 2014 update of the line. There are various versions. You can get ones with complications like chronographs, there's quartz versions, but this is actually their most popular and highest selling model. The Colt comes in 3 variations of dial colors. This is the Marina Blue, probably my favorite out of the bunch. Then of course there's the Volcano Black, and what they call Stratus Silver. They also come in a wide variety of straps, from rubber to leather, and this new 2014 release comes with the Professional 3 bracelet, which is, I gotta say, one of my favorite bracelets from Breitling, and something they do very well with these slightly angled center links. Well, actually all the links are angled. It's a very particular look and something quite unique to Breitling. So let's get the dimensions out the way. Now I must state for my good friends at Saltzman, do not worry, I have sellotape on the end of the calipers. We have a diameter of just under 41mm. We have a nice height, although the quite pronounced bezel, the height is only, well, just under 11mm, so really quite thin. Lug to lug, we're looking at 50, so not that wide either. And of course the lug width, 20. So a really perfect size. For me personally, this I think is excellent. And really, I was quite shocked that when I unboxed it, I was expecting it to be quite big. You know, when we think of Breitling, we do tend to think of big timepieces, but this is actually very conservatively sized, and I'm glad Breitling did that. And for a 2014 release, that's quite a rare thing. Now, it's interesting because this watch is an amalgamation of several different genres. They describe it as an aeronautical watch, although it has certain aspects of a field watch as well, with the 24-hour markings on the inner part of the dial. Then, of course, we have 200 meters water resistance, very much like a dive watch, and of course a screw-down crown as well, which is of course signed with the Breitling B logo. The dial and hands are very much aviation inspired, and it kind of blends all these styles together very, very well in quite a unique watch. The raised bezel is probably the most instantly recognizable character trait of the Colt line. It's a unidirectional 120 click bezel. It's a beautifully made bezel. We have a brushed finish on the top, and then the rest of the watch is entirely a mirror finish, something that Breitling do incredibly well. But what I love is on the bezel, you can really see the difference in texture. The top of the bezel that angles slightly is of course brushed, while the little engraved indices are bead blasted, and you can just see if you look really, really close, and the numerals are done in the same fashion on the little riders, and of course we have a loom pip at the 12 o'clock. It's easy to mistake brushing for bead blasted sometimes, but this just demonstrates how well they can do it. The 4 raised riders also make it very practical and easy to turn. Any military watch, it has to be practical, legible, robust. So what they've done, they've taken the best of all the genres we just talked about and mixed it up into one watch, which is, you know, it could have been a nightmare, but I think they've done it very, very well. The result is this quite striking, macho, quite bold look that I think actually is quite dazzling in certain respect. The dial is probably my favorite feature, and there are some very, very subtle characteristics. For example, on the inner chapter ring, quite unusually, a 100th of an hour scale, which is something you see on aviation pieces. The hands are index style hands with a skeletonized arrow tip for the second hand, and I love the way it reaches right to the edge. And also we have superluminova on all the indices. And actually, let's have a quick look at the loom shot, because it has great loom. Just look at that really bright, responsive superluminova. It lasts for a really nice long time. We have a super exaggerated pip on the bezel. Also a very subtle little triangle at the 12 o'clock above that applied to 12, just to indicate where 12 o'clock is. It's a shame that actual 12, the numerals are not loomed up. And also what is missing is loom on the second hand. That's a little bit of a shame, but you can just see it occasionally pass the indices. It's going to pass 2. There you go, just saw it there. But I got to say, the loom is outstanding. Okay, back to the studio. The dial has a beautiful concentric circle ridged pattern, giving it a beautiful sunburst effect that radiates outwards. The crystal is of course sapphire, and we have a double AR coating, giving it a very particular purple hue when angled at a certain degree. Other times it looks like it's not there at all, and you could just touch the dial. It is something that Breitling do incredibly well. The quality of the glass, of the sapphire glass, just look at it at that angle. It's stunning. I love Breitling dials. There's always a lot of detail going on, and they're always printed even on a ridged surface like that. Just look at how the numerals are crisp and clear. We have that stunning gold painted Breitling logo. I got to say, one of my favorite logos of any brand. Then a rail track scale running around the outside in between the indices, which are applied, and the chapter ring. Very, very nice attention to detail. And then of course we have the 3 o'clock date, quite nicely incorporated into the placement where the applied indices would be. We have a slight pop of color with the word Colt matching the arrow hand. and then an applied 12 o'clock. Again, a little nod to the aviation styling. It's very, very subtle, but it's there. The caseback is rather plain for a Breitling. Usually we see beautifully engraved casebacks. This is a screw-down caseback with, of course, those angled edges, something typical of Breitling, just with Breitling and the B logo, nothing too over the top. So inside we have the Breitling Caliber 17, which is based, of course, on the ETA 2824-2. But in typical Breitling style, as they do with all their timepieces, it is COSC certified. And they do this at a specially dedicated studio workshop in Le Champ de Fonds in Switzerland. It operates at 28,800 vibrations an hour. It has a 40-hour power reserve. It's a 25 jaw movement. We have a little bit of decoration there, but at the end of the day, this is very much a tool watch. It really is about performance and getting the job done accurately, which is what you'd want for a military watch. The advantage of this particular movement is, of course, that not only is it incredibly accurate to COSC parameters, but they're reasonably affordable to maintain and service. These are very proven workhorse movements. To be honest, it's what you'd want in a watch like this. So bracelets is something that Breitling do very, very well. And as you can see, they are screwed links. Not only that, we have solid end links, brushed on the inside and then high mirror polish on the outside. We have a folding clasp, which is done incredibly well. Beautifully signed there with a fold over safety catch as well. And beautifully engraved the little Breitling logo, of course. There are 4 micro adjustments. It's nothing over the top, it's nothing super fancy, but it's solid, very, very well machined, and definitely of a luxury standard. So let's pop it on the wrist. And there we go. Now, as you can see, because of those beautifully angled lugs, it's quite unusual lugs. I haven't seen this before in a watch, where the lugs they look like claws and they angle down beautifully. Now the advantage of that is that even for a 41mm watch, this wears incredibly small. It wears actually more like a 38, which for me is the optimum size. They have a real nice curve. Look at the underside of the watch. Just hugs the wrist. There are larger versions of this watch, so if you have larger wrists, you're going to get a really good fit. The crown guards are very subtle. We have a slight another angle matching the lugs there, with a kind of baston curvature towards the bottom. The crown itself is the perfect size, very easy to operate. With the bracelet, we're looking at about 194 grams. Without the bracelet, however, we're only looking at 78, which is a really, really nice, comfortable watch. And in fact, actually, if you were using this as a military watch, you'd probably put it on an ATA strap. In fact, you would put it on an ATA strap, and I could imagine it would be extremely comfortable, especially with the placement of the spring bars. It would just be an absolute pleasure to wear. And for a quite conservatively sized watch, it still feels macho and very masculine. I think mainly because of its look. It is, of course, hackable, and we have manual wind, which is what you'd come to expect with this movement. Now, as we look at the bezel going around the outside, we can see little screws, and they not only adjust the tightness, but they also securely fasten the bezel to the watch. So it adds to its robustness in keeping with the military-esque aesthetic of the watch. That nautical inspired blue is just ravishing. It's very rich. It also adds a little bit of pizzazz to what could be quite a stern or serious watch. The actual bezel is more like the adjustment, I feel, on the scope of a rifle, you know, but that's just perfect for a watch with this theme. Okay guys, so I'm going to leave it there. Let's take it back to the studio and summarize the watch. So let's go through the pros and cons, the positives and negatives of the Colt 41. Well, first of all, I've got to address this. One of the most frequently asked questions I get on my channel is people looking for their first luxury timepiece, and I usually steer them in the direction of the Omega Speedmaster or the Omega Seamaster, of course, because I think those are reasonably affordable. You're getting a very well-made, finished watch with a great history behind it. And I kind of neglect the entry-level Breitlings, and I gotta say, well, most of it is because I haven't been exposed to this level of Breitling enough. I haven't had enough experience, but with all things in life, once you experience it, I can wholeheartedly recommend the Colt 41. I think it is actually a really great entry-level luxury timepiece. I think the quality of the finishing is there. In fact, I would go so far to say as I think the quality is superior to, in terms of the Breitling entry-level watches at least, I think the quality is definitely superior to Omega. I also think its versatility can appeal to a lot of people, and I certainly understand why it's so popular. Most people don't want massive collections, they just want one luxury timepiece, and if you had to have one timepiece, this certainly would be a very strong candidate. Mainly because, you know, you got the robustness, the sturdiness of like a dive watch with that 200-meter water resistance. You got that luxury quality finish there. It's also quite versatile in terms of, you know, it looks great on a rubber strap, it looks great on a leather strap, it looks great on a NATO. You can dress it up, dress it down, which is something quite surprising of such a tool watch aesthetic. I gotta say, I was never a fan of the particular Breitlings with these raised bezels. I just, it's not a look that I was into, but I have to say, you know, spending some time with it now, I've grown to really like it. In fact, if I didn't have the Zin, I would probably be considering this, the Colt 41. I also love the size of the watch. I really appreciate the fact that even in 2014, when the oversized trend, and Breitling's certainly guilty of this. I mean, they were really riding the wave of the big, ginormous, exaggerated watches, and to a certain extent, Breitling's image has kind of been tarnished by that to a degree. But this is a very conservatively sized watch. It's a very macho, bold aesthetic, so it doesn't have to be big. But if you have the larger wrist, at the same time, you can go for the 44mm version. So there's a wide variety within the range of Colts. There's even the lady, is it called the lady? You know, the Colt for women, which I think is a bit of a paradoxical mistake, because a military watch encrusted with diamonds, it just doesn't make sense. But however, you know, we'll stick to we'll stick to these versions. So it wears incredibly comfortably, and I think that's due mostly to those wonderfully curved lugs. It's just a lot of thought has gone into the design. So even though it is a smaller size, it's not overcompensating like so many Breitling watches have been doing. It's actually quite discreet. You know, I like the choice of colors. The blue gives it a little bit more pop, a little bit more pizzazz, and even with that pronounced bezel just under 11mm, which again, a little bit like the Seamaster, which of course is a dive watch, it goes very well under the cuff. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend wearing it with formal attire, but it still works with a jacket for smart casual. And at the end of the day, it really is a difficult thing to be able to pull off in a watch design, because it's going back to the core of what Breitling used to be all about, and that is, of course, the tool watch. And I very much appreciate that. I'm finding that tool watches for me are my preferred genre or style of watch. They just resonate with me, especially if you have an active lifestyle. This is a perfect watch for the younger gentleman, somebody that needs something robust, but at the same time appreciates something of a higher quality. Okay, so now let's address the negatives. First of all, the high polish mirror finish of that bracelet is an absolute scratch magnet, undoubtedly. I think it could have done with maybe like an oyster style brushed finish. Maybe that's just my preference, but I think that could be a little bit maddening, and I have found that with Breitlings I've owned in the past. Secondly, although it does have the applied 12 o'clock marker at the top, I kind of miss the 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock numerals. Something they've done away with this update of the Colt. I think it is still available in the quartz, the super quartz version. I'm not entirely sure on that. For me, you guys know I'm obsessed with the Rolex Explorer. I do like those numerals. Again, a very minor thing. It's just a little thing of aesthetics. that I obsess about. Also, I do think the Colt design is a little bit lost in the range, in the Breitling range. There's a lot of watches they offer with these raised bezels. You know, it's if you're new to Breitling, you might get a bit confused. I would have liked to see something just distinguish it a little bit more obviously from the other watches. God knows what that could be. You know, I'm not a watch designer. Even though I appreciate its more understated design compared to some of the louder Breitlings that the brand is so famous for, I feel it gets a little bit lost. It would have been nice to see it something just very, you know, something more special to the Colt. Something else I would like to see in the Colt is drilled lug holes. Now, I said the same thing about the little Zinn 104. I just feel it's a very useful, especially a watch like this that is such a strap monster, you know, because it looks so good on so many different straps. I think it would have been a really useful, practical detail to the design, and also kind of in keeping with that tool aesthetic. Another point we should mention is there are obvious corners cut. Now, undoubtedly, this is the entry level for Breitling, so you're not going to see the level of detail you will like in comparison, for example, to my Navitimer. So there are things missing, like the engraving on the back. Now, while I appreciate that to keep costs down, at the end of the day, this is, you know, just over $2,000. So I feel, you know, I feel it is a little bit cheeky. Also, there's no counterbalance to the second hand, you know, like we see on the Navitimer here. Maybe that's more in keeping with the look of the Colt. But these little details that I really enjoy about my Navitimer do bring a level of luxury that I think isn't necessarily there in the Colt. And lastly, the biggest negative of this watch, and I've got to be careful because I don't want you to misunderstand, because it is positive at the same time, and that is the movement, the ETA based caliber 17. While it is COSC certified and you know, we're looking at an accuracy, I was getting a plus 3 seconds a day from mine, which is outstanding. When you're spending several grand on a watch, that age-old argument, is it justified? You know, you expect something a little more, and then considering, you know, you got the Zinn, and I'm drawing a lot of comparisons to the Zinn, because I think the Zinn at just over $1,000, what is it, 1,200, just shy of 1,300, and what they've done to this particular movement just demonstrates the level of detail that is achievable at lower price ranges. Although yes, it is COSC certified, and I think what Breitling do to their movements and testing them to quite a high standard, you are getting your money's worth. But how much of that $2,500, or I think how much are they going for? I'm not entirely sure, but you know, how much of that are you paying for the luxury branding, the brand of the, you know, Breitling? You're paying for that label. Now, of course, there's an element of that in all luxury products, and it's just something we have to accept. But I do feel that the price is a little bit high. But don't get me wrong, I still recommend it. I think it's a marvelous watch. If you're looking for that first luxury timepiece, but you don't want to spend, you know, you're looking to spend a few grand, this is something you should definitely consider. So the negatives really are very kind of nitpicking, very minor. It is almost the perfect entry-level luxury timepiece. So guys, I'm gonna leave it there. Absolutely adore this timepiece. Do I need a watch like this? Absolutely not. Do I want one? Completely and utterly. But that is the curse of, of reviewing these beautiful timepieces. I think it's an outstanding choice for a first luxury timepiece, and I will be recommending it as so from now on. So, questions, queries, thoughts, opinions, all the rest of it down below, please. Especially if you are a Breitling Colt owner, please do let me know what you love and loathe about the watch. I really do appreciate the feedback. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.